Kfxn-Fm. Kfxn-Fm 100.3 FM is a commercial radio station licensed to Minneapolis, Minnesota, broadcasting a sports talk format. The station is owned by iHeartMedia and serves the Twin Cities market. Kfxn-Fm transmitter is located in the suburb of Shoreview on KMSP TV Tower. Its effective radiated power is 100,000 watts including beam tilt. The station's main studios are in St. Louis Park. Kfxn-Fm is the flagship station of the Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota Wild, and Minnesota Golden Gophers football. At midnight on August 15, 2011, iHeartMedia, then known as Clear Channel Communications, swapped the formats of KFAN 1130 AM and 100.3 FM former conservative news/talk format KTLK-FM. The new Kfxn-Fm call sign, shared with former AM sister station KFXN, was adopted the same day. History. WCTS. The station started broadcasting in 1965 as WCTS, with a non-commercial Christian format consisting of mostly Bible teachings by the Fourth Baptist Church in Minneapolis. WCTS took its call letters from its owner, the Central Theological Seminary. WCTS continues broadcasting on 10:30 AM. WBob. Startup company Colfax Communications purchased WCTS-FM for $10 million in early 1993. Part of the deal was that they needed to find an AM station for the seminary to purchase in order to continue the format, which they did when they struck a deal to buy WMIN. Around the same time, Colfax took advantage of recently relaxed Federal Communications Commission (FCC) rules and became the Twin Cities market's first duopoly when they purchased KQQL to partner with the new station. Once WCTS switched frequencies in January, Colfax took the FM station off the air for a few months, eventually signing back on in late April with a 2-week-long comedy format as a stunt to create a buzz about the new station, with the permanent country music format debuting on May 13 as WBob Bob 100. The slogan was "Turn Your Knob to Bob." WBob faced stiff competition from the long-established KFAN 102 and upstart KJJO-FM, which had switched to country only a few months prior. Despite this, WBob was consistently the second highest-rated country station in the market behind KFAN 102, even finishing ahead of them in a few books. However, when KJJO left the format in 1995, it allowed KFAN 102 to aim their guns directly at Bob. A battle 100.3 soon lost swiftly. wrqc. In 1996, both WBob and KQQL were sold to Chancellor Broadcasting, which also owned KFAN, KDWB, KTCZ, and KTCJ. A format change for WBob was expected, and on April 15, 1997, at 1:03 p.m., after an hour of stunting, WBob became WRQC, broadcasting an active rock format with Howard Stern in the morning. WRQC took to the air as Real Rock 100, and then Rock 100.3. Stern's show was a mild success in the market, but consistently finished second or third in the ratings, while only taking away a smaller than expected number of listeners from KQRS and Tom Barner. In addition, like many other Stern affiliates, ratings for the station the rest of the day were poor, and not helped by KQRS owners flipping its sister station, Keyed, to a similar hard rock format in 1997. WRQC and Stern left the Twin Cities airwaves on August 3, 1999, as the station began stunting by simulcasting co-owned KFAN, a harbinger of its future format. When the new format debuted 2 days later, the format was 1970s-era classic hits, which eventually went to full-blown classic hits as Classic Hits 100.3 WLAL. Although ratings were decent initially, the station's overall performance was disappointing. During its period as WLAL, station owners, Chancellor Broadcasting, merged with Capstar Broadcasting to form AmFM Inc. and the next year was absorbed into Clear Channel Communications, now its current owners, iHeartMedia. KJZI on June 19, 2003 at noon. Following a goodbye show, 100.3 changed to Smooth Jazz as Smooth Jazz 100.3 with new matching call letters KJZI. The last song on WLOL was Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles, while the first song on KJZI was Smooth Operator by Sade. This was the first smooth jazz station in the Twin Cities since KMJZ switched to modern AC in 1998. When public broadcaster Kfxn-Fm, another jazz station, found itself in financial straits in early 2005, KJZI and its sister station KTCZ carried announcements requesting support for Kfxn-Fm. The generous move was lauded by many in the media. KTLK-FM. While satisfied with smooth jazz, Clear Channel was even more interested in launching a news/talk station in the Twin Cities in order to air programming from company-owned Premier Radio Networks and Fox News Radio. Having no available AM stations in the market on which they could run a news/talk format, KFAN was already highly successful with their sports/talk format, and Datimer Kfxn possessed too weak a signal. Clear Channel decided to put a talk format on one of their FM signals. The company had success with the introduction of news/talk on one of their Pittsburgh FM stations, WPGB, and was launching FM news/talk in other markets. Since their other Twin Cities FM stations KDWB-FM, KFM, KTCZ-FM, and KQQL were already entrenched, management decided KJZI was the most expendable. On January 2, 2006, KJZI switched to news/talk with new KTLK call letters, becoming the second FM talk station in the area after female-oriented WFMP. The station obtained the market rights to Rush Limbaugh and later Sean Hannity's radio programs from KSTP. A mix of local and syndicated hosts such as Glenn Beck and Laura and Graham filled out the rest of KTLK's schedule, including former KSTP host Jason Louis and paranormal talk show Darkness Radio. The station had also resumed carrying Vikings football. Clear Channel also owned an AM news/talk station in Los Angeles, California that used the KTLK call sign. The last station became KABE on January 2, 2014, after which Clear Channel reassigned KTLK to what was known as KTCN. In the spring of 2008, former KTLK news director Jeff Monoso was honored with congressional recognition for his reporting on the 35W bridge collapse. He and host Jason Louis were also honored by the Minnesota Associated Press for Best Spot News coverage. On August 8, 2011, Clear Channel announced a two-way frequency swap that moved KTLK-FM talk format to 1130 AM and a translator at 103.5 FM, while KFAN's sports talk format would move to 100.3 FM. This swap took effect on August 15, 2011. The low-power signal at 103.5 FM and the HD2 subchannel at 100.3 FM both underwent the same format swap. There were plans to simulcast the talk station's signal on FM translator 103.5 FM, but this had been delayed while seeking FCC approval. KTLK can currently be heard on a translator on 103.5 FM. Programming. According to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, KFAN has morphed from a sports talk station to a talk station that sometimes discusses sports. Daily, Monday, Friday. The Power Trip Morning Show is hosted by Kari Cove and Chris Hawkey. The co-host is Paul Meatsauce Lambert. Lambert also hosts an infrequent program called Saturdays with Sauce with former intern AJ Manser. Frequent guests on the show include former WCCO TV sports anchor Mark Rosen, former Minnesota Vikings linebacker Ben Leber, former Minnesota Wild player Mark Parrish, Twins geek John Bonds, Volley Sports North reporter Marnie Gellner, Carly Uplinzucker, former Golden Gopher, bedwetter Tommy Olson, often stoned, sleep. 92 Noon is hosted by Paul Allen. Allen is the voice of the Minnesota Vikings radio network and Canterbury Park. The Common Man program is hosted by the Common Man Dan Cole and interim producer Brandon Milesky. The show features a mix of sports and political discussions on the local and national level. WCCO TV sports anchor Mark Rosen makes regular appearances on the program Monday through Thursday. Bumper to Bumper is hosted by Dan Barrero and sidekick/producer fan Justin Gard. The show consists of Barrero's insights on both popular culture and sports. Bumper to Bumper also features satirical call-in segments with eccentric Green Bay Packers fan Carl Gerbschmidt, who appears to be a fictional character. Other programming, Video Games Weekly, Tuesday evenings, hosted by Paul Charkin, who discusses new video games for many different platforms. The show is co-hosted by staff members of Game Informer magazine, typically managing editor Andrew Riener. Game Informer, owned by GameStop Corporation, is a monthly magazine based out of Minneapolis. Corey Cove sometimes joins to talk about games. Sharkian joins fellow radio cohorts on Saturdays with Sauce when they have their annual video game bracket/tournament. KFAN Outdoors, Thursdays 6 minutes 8 p.m., hosted by the Captain Billy Hildebrand and Cold Front Mike Curry, and Saturdays 6 minutes 8 a.m. by Hildebrand and Pheasants Forever member Bob St. Pierre. The hosts typically share their hunting and fishing experiences and strategies, along with insights on outdoor issues. One of the main weekly guests is local Minnesotan professional angler and fisher tackle Terry Tuma, who gives weekly updates on where he is fishing and on how the waters are, fishing strategies, including baiting and lures and overall fishing banter. A sometimes weekly but mainly bi-weekly guest is naturalist, author, wildlife photographer, and animal/bird professional Stan Tekula. Tekula provides deep and thorough analysis and information on current bird information such as feeding, nesting, breeding, behavior, migration, and hatching of all the different bird species, as well as different animals around. Other guests usually include experts/professionals that relate to the current season's, e.g. around/on spring fishing opener. They have fishing-intensive guests. In the Zone, Saturdays 8 minutes 10 a.m., hosted by Dave Sinekin and former NBA player Trent Tucker. Minnesota Viking broadcast. Pre-game coverage of Vikings games starts 2 hours before the day's Vikings game. Pre-game was usually hosted by Mr. Fun Joe Anderson. However, Anderson was let go sometime before 2009, and Cone 102 KFM Mike Mussman took over the duties of pre-game coverage. KFAN's Vikings broadcast team consists of Paul Allen on play-by-play and color commentary done by former Viking linebacker and assistant coach Pete Bursich. Sideline insight is brought to the game by former Viking punter Greg Coleman and former Viking linebacker Ben Leber. The halftime report is hosted by Mike Mussman. The postgame report is also hosted by Mussman and includes interviews with multiple Vikings players and coaching staff, which are conducted by Greg Coleman. Viking Fan Line starts right after the Vikings post-game report and lasts about 2 hours. Former NFL wide receiver Ron Johnson and morning show host Corey Cove take fan post-game reaction and provide their commentary on the game and the fans' reactions. Prior to the 2016 season, former Vikings linebacker Ben Leber hosted the program along with Cove, and former Vikings linebacker E.J. Henderson would fill Ben Leber's seat when he was unavailable. Prior to Ben Leber, previous Vikings long snapper Mike Maurice was the usual co-host. Other former Vikings have guest co-hosted the show in the past. Packer Preview, Sundays 8 minutes during the Green Bay Packers season, hosted by Dave Sinekin. The preview examines the day's Packers game. Packer Preview is the only Packers show on KFAN and is very, very controversial among Viking fans. The show remains on air, however. Fantasy Football Weekly, Saturdays during the football season and syndicated to other iHeartRadio sports stations around the country. Hosted by Paul Charkin since 1994. Former co-hosts include John Tuvey, Christian Peterson, and Bo Mitchell. The current hosts are Matt Harrison, Brian Johnson, and Scott Fish. Typical shows will offer advice and predictions for almost 200 players each week. Fantasy football questions are answered on this show, primarily during Lightning Round at the end of the show. Other recurring segments include Take a Chance on Me and 5 Tough Questions. Callers are known to call a couple of hours before the show is on air to be put on hold. During the MN Golden Gophers football season, show is usually moved to the 6 minutes 8 a.m. slot or the 8 minutes 10 a.m. slot. Saturdays with Sauce, Saturdays 12-2. Hosted by Power Trip Morning, show sidekick Paul Meat Sauce Lambert and AJ Manser usually from noon to 2, but special shows such as NFL draft coverage shows, Vikings training camp specials, etc. can go over the normal time slot on Saturday afternoons. Saturdays with Sauce also airs on other days for aforementioned reasons, Vikings training camp, etc. During MN Golden Gophers football season is usually usurped. However, they will sometimes host MN Gophers Fan Line, MN Gophers Wine Line, Gophers Wine Line, Wine Line, Wine Line. Tee to Green, Saturdays. Golf-related show hosted by Dan Cole during the summer months. Talks all things golf-related with co-host and master teaching professional Craig Warren. Also regular co-host is Ping Guy Paul Peterson. Fox Sports Radio, the programming that is on when none of the programs above are on the air. Fox Sports Radio programming on KFAN includes The Ben Mahler Show and multiple weekend shows. Fox Sports Radio is usually heard weeknights 9 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. and weekends when local programming or sports events are not happening. CBS Sports Radio, the programming that can also be heard during the weekends only in addition to Fox Sports Radio. The rotation is usually a predetermined schedule, but can be subject to change at any given time. CBS Sports Radio joined KFAN's lineup sometime around the end of 2018/beginning of 2019 when NBC Sports Radio programming was removed and replaced by the former. At first there was more CBS Sports Radio than Fox Sports Radio, but the rotation has since evened out, if not returned to more Fox Sports Radio. Vikings Live/Vikings Country, Thursdays usually almost always begins with Paul Allen, play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Vikings and host of the 9 noon. Vikings Country Live is usually right after. It usually takes place at Skydeck Sports Grill and Lanes at the Mall of America. The second segment contains the scouting report where they discuss the previous football week/Vikings game as well as the upcoming week. Minnesota Wild broadcast. KFAN-FM 100.3 is the official flagship home of the Minnesota Wild. Since the 2011-12 NHL season, KFAN has broadcast all Wild preseason, regular season, and Stanley Cup playoff games on the state of hockey's top-rated sports talk station. Bob Kurtz play-by-play, Tom Reed analyst, and Kevin Fallon studio host capture all of the action and suspense. Coverage begins with a 15-minute pre-game show. Conflicting games are moved to Cool 108 FM. Additional Wild-related programming on KFAN features the Wild Weekly Show and Wild Fan Line, which airs after select Wild games. Beyond the Pond, hockey-related show during the winter months. Hosted by former Minnesota Wild and Minnesota Gopher Jordan Leopold and former Minnesota Gopher Pat Micheletti and Common Man program interim producer Brandon Milesky. Former Golden Gopher Nate Miller was a co-host until 2016, departing the show for other ventures. Kevin Fallon is a typical fill-in when any of the hosts cannot be on air. In the off-season, show is rebranded/retitled Beyond the Pod, correlating with the fact that it is only an all-podcast/podcast exclusive show. Sunday Sermons, hosted by Dan Barrero. Short version of Bumper to Bumper, with KFAN former intern and weekend producer Ryan Donaldson. Show typically recaps past week and provides coverage of weekend events. During the Minnesota Vikings season, it is typically shortened to 1 hour except in case of scheduled Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night games, generally providing in-depth and heavy analysis to the week's game pre-game to the pre-game. Former programming. Rights to the Minnesota Timberwolves broadcasts were lost in 2006. KFAN had held these rights since the Wolves' inaugural season in 1989. The Wolves returned to KFAN beginning in the 2008-9 season, until the 2010-11 season, when the team moved to WCCO-AM, PA, and Dubé, hosted by Paul Allen and Jeff Dubé. Consists of Minnesota Vikings news, University of Minnesota sports, some Minnesota Twins happenings, and news on the Minnesota Wild and Minnesota Timberwolves. Paul Allen is known as the voice of the Minnesota Vikings since he does the play-by-play for KFAN's broadcast of Vikings games. PA is the track announcer at the local horse racing track Canterbury Park. Paul Allen continues a solo show at the station. The Chad Hartman Show, 2 p.m. minus 4 p.m., hosted by Chad Hartman, son of Twin Cities sports writer Sid Hartman. The show features a mix of sports and current issues. On January 20, 2009, Hartman and Darren Wolfson were laid off from Clear Channel as part of company-wide layoffs. Sludge and Lake Show, hosted by Corey Sludge Cove and Henry Lake, consisted of the latest in sports, entertainment, etc. The show last aired May 15, 2009. ESPN Radio, on when none of the programs above were on the air. ESPN Radio programming on KFAN included All Night with Jason Smith and multiple weekend shows. The ESPN Radio affiliation moved to KSTP on April 12, 2010. NBC Sports Radio, former national sports programming, heard on weekends until sometime around the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, when NBC Sports Radio ceased operations as a 24/7 national sports programming network. Shows that could be heard included the Best of PFT Live, which was a weekend show that would include bits and pieces from the previous week of PFT Live, a show hosted by Mike Florio and based on his website, Profit Ball Talk. Florio can still be heard during his appearances on Paul Allen's show from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. daily, usually once a week. Former on-air staff. Mike Morris, former co-host of the Power Trip Morning Show, was let go amid budget cuts in late 2012. Formerly co-host of Radioactive Sports on Sports Radio 105 The Ticket WGVX. When 105 The Ticket changed formats, Morris moved to 1500 ESPN. Jeff Dubé. After co-hosting the PA and Dubé Show for 10 years, Dubé was let go after a crack cocaine charge in October 2008. Chad Hartman, former play-by-play announcer of Minnesota Timberwolves and son of Twin Cities sports icon Sid Hartman, now host on WCCO Radio, 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 Radio. Dave Huffman, former Minnesota Vikings guard and color commentator. Ryan Lefevre, current radio play-by-play announcer of the Kansas City Royals. Michelle Tafoya, sideline reporter for NBC Sunday Night Football as of the 2013-14 season. Mark Rosen, longtime WCCO TV sports anchor, still makes regular guest appearances on current KFAN programming. Jess Ventura, former wrestler and governor of Minnesota. Wade Keller, former host, is the founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch. Bob Yates. Mike Woodley, Joe Sensor, restaurateur and former Minnesota Viking color commentator. KFAN, the restaurant. It opened in 2004 and closed in 2005. The food services were managed by Grand Management, which operates a chain of Sydney's restaurants in the Twin Cities. Clear Channel Communications considered it to be a pilot project and may have tried to create similar restaurants across the country if it succeeded. In September 2005, the KFAN name was dropped and the restaurant became known as the Big City Tavern. In July 2006, Big City Tavern closed. The restaurant was taken over by Major's Sports Cafe in September 2006, then changed owners again in 2008 to the Roseville location of Grumpy's Bar and Grill. KFxn 690 AM. KFxn, also known as Score 690, was KFAN's sister station and aired a complimentary sports talk format from 1998 until September 2011. Prior to being donated to the Minority Media and Telecommunications Council, the station aired mostly syndicated shows from Fox Sports and ESPN Radio in addition to the Dan Patrick Show and the Jim Rome Show. For a time, KFxn also aired repeats of KFAN's local shows. With the divestiture and format change of KFxn, Clear Channel moved the sports format of the Score to the HD2 subchannel of KQQL, with plans to eventually air it on translator K278BP1 wrqc. The KFAN Radio Network. HD Radio. By February 2005, the station was one of a handful of stations in Minnesota to use Ubiquity's HD radio system for digital radio broadcasts. On April 25, 2006, Clear Channel announced that KTLK's HD2 subchannel will carry a format focusing on classic country hits from their format lab. In August 2009, the format was changed to classic rock. On August 22, 2010, the HD2 channel began instead carrying the audio of KFAN 1130, mainly in order to allow KFAN's signal. The station later moved to 103.5 as K278BP. Kfxn-Fm HD3 subchannel is carrying EMFK Love Contemporary Christian format, rebroadcast on K260BA 99.9 FM.